good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to each and every last one of you lovely people listening to this episode of The Dom Trap. I really do appreciate it. You know who you are. I don't even have to say it anymore. I just want to say that I am grateful that you're listening, and I'm taking all of your feedback into consideration, and I'm appreciating that you're leaving such feedback. Let me know what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong and what I could continue to do better and help me get better at this whole thing. So once again, I just want to say thank you to each and every last one of you. Before I get started, I want to get a few shout outs and congratulations out of the way. I want to give a huge shout out to my cousin Justin and my cousin Jalen. They both reached out to me at a time where I kind of needed just someone to check in on me. You know, you always got to say, check in on your strong friends or whatever, but they kind of did that. They reached out to me. I guess they knew that something wasn't right and they checked in on me. Obviously things weren't right, so I do want to say that I appreciate both of y'all for checking in, seeing what was going on and such. And I want to give a huge congratulations to my sister who brought in a baby boy by the name of Grayson. I'm looking forward to being Uncle Dom yet again. And I want to give another shout out to my boy Lex, who you may know Lex. He was on my last episode of the podcast. He welcomed a beautiful baby boy by the name of Sebastian into the world. So congratulations to Lex on the beautiful bundle of joy. I hope that he's everything that you wanted him to be and will continue to be so. I hope that you're mental as well. I know it's been a while. Well, we've been kind of speaking, but it's been a while since we've been speaking constantly. So hoping everything is going well with you, man. I really do. So once again, everyone, I appreciate every last one of you for checking me out, listening, giving me feedback, and asking for advice, and answering questions and asking questions. I really do appreciate all of it. Now, real quick, I do want to get into the Many Saints of Newark. Now, if you don't know what that is the prequel film that came out in theaters and on HBO Max. It's a prequel to the Sopranos television show that came on years ago. I watched The Sopranos again in preparation for this movie. And what was weird is that this time when I was watching the show, there were points where I kind of looked away. Like something would happen and I knew what was going to happen, but I just looked away because I guess that I've changed as a person. Maybe when I was watching it before, that stuff didn't affect me as much as it did now, but there were moments where I just looked away from the TV and I was like, well, I'm not going to watch this part. I'm just going to, or I skipped some of it. And I just thought that was weird. I guess that's just growing up in maturity, I guess. When you're watching shows that you loved a lot when you were younger and then watching them now, you may not want to see it all. Now, with this movie, I knew that it was going to be a prequel. It was announced to be a prequel. I thought it was going to be a prequel of the character Tony Soprano, who was the main character in the television show, but it's more of a prequel about his quote-unquote uncle by the name of Dickie Moltisanti. And in the show, he basically has Dickie's son named Christopher running things kind of under him. In a way, he doesn't really trust Christopher in the show, but yeah, Christopher's dad is Dickie Moltisanti, and that's who the movie is mainly about, which was a little bit of a surprise to me. I was expecting there to be more Tony and his dad, Johnny Boy. I was hoping to see more interaction between the two of them, considering how the show basically told us that Tony's dad is the reason why Tony got into the mafia and continued to do business anyway. But it was just weird how he would pop up because it's Tony, of course, but he wasn't really the main focus of the film. Granted, it was to set up his character in the television show, but in the film, it really didn't seem that way. But Dickie Moltisanti as a character, I mean, first and foremost, the movie begins in 1967, I believe, but the movie's told throughout the 60s and 70s over a certain amount of time. And during this time, racism is very much alive. It's almost like racism is the cool thing. Being a racist is basically being the cool guy. So with this show taking place in like the 70s primarily, that means that the movie anyway, the movie was taking place in the 70s and 60s, which is basically 20 years before the television series started. which is when Tony is a child and before he meets the love of his life, I guess you could call her. And it's basically about his OGs in a sense, such as Dickie and his whole gang, and Dickie's dad, whose name is Hollywood Dick. And Dickie as a character is a flawed man. He's not right, but people go to him because they believe that he has everything figured out. And in the show, we were told stories about Dickie because Dickie's character, he doesn't make it to the show. I will just say that. By the time the show is on and we catch up with these characters, then Dickie's no longer around. There's been years, many years since he's been gone. So seeing that Dickie was made up to be this high and mighty character who got Tony into the game, he was everyone's favorite mafioso guy, and he did this and he did that, and oh, he so this and he so that, and he's such a badass. But seeing it in the movie, it's like this dude has problems and he has no way to get these problems solved. For example, he meets a woman that comes from Italy, and she is his dad's fiance, I'll say. And when they're at the dinner table and they're actually talking, you can tell that there's a little bit of sexual tension between the two. So they're at the dinner table and Dickie's wife says something to the fact that, "Did you hear that, Dickie? She's going to be your new stepmom." And Dickie hates that, of course. So I want to say that his love for this woman overshadows the love that he has for his dad, because Dickie goes as far as killing his dad to show this woman that he wants her, basically. So he kills his dad, and of course he covers it up. It's the 70s, so there's no kind of technology or anything to show that he actually did it. Nobody really cares even, because the movie is only about 2 hours long, and that's an issue for the movie. We have so much happening with this movie, but there's not enough time to tell a tale that really needs to be told with a lot of these characters. This movie would do great if it were an 8, 9, or 10 episode miniseries, because we'd have plenty of time to know about these characters before they get killed off, or they get drowned in nasty New Jersey water, or they just leave for no reason. The movie is pacing is kind of off because there's so much happening, and like I said, it's a lot happening in so much amount of time, and the movie is just not long enough to tell these stories. This is character Harold, who works under Dickie, and their relationship is kind of there, but it's not there, but there's not enough time to tell that tale. And then Dickie's relationship with his uncle, and also this woman that was his dad's fiance, and then Dickie's family, and then you also have to throw in Tony Soprano and Tony Soprano's family, and all this setup in under 2 hours, which was basically near pointless to do. I don't want to say that this movie is pointless, but the way that they decided to tell it just didn't make much sense to me. I really would have enjoyed it if there would have been a story told over several episodes of TV rather than a 2-hour movie. So that's why with this movie, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. It's above average. It's enjoyable, especially if you love the TV show, because you get to see these stories that people talked about in the show. But it also just goes to show, like, I really didn't notice things as I was watching it, but after I watched it, I started thinking about it. And I said, oh, well, these guys are really petty because of something that happens. That someone gets killed in this movie for laughing at someone else. And when I was watching it, I was like, that was the pettiest thing that I probably have seen in a movie, considering they were quote-unquote family mafiosos and all. Someone orders a hit out to kill someone else. But then I thought about it, but in the show, there's a character who wants to order hits because a fat joke was made about his wife. And thinking about that now that I'm older, I'm like, well, that's kind of petty too. They could have just talked about it like men, but they were too afraid of each other to do so. So it's like the way that things are told in this story it's so much build up for some kind of big and major event, just for someone to get killed because of something so petty. And then in the show, you hear these stories and everything, but these people aren't really what they were made out to be in these stories. In the show, we were told that, Dickie was this badass and oh my God. And then we were also told at the same time that he was a junkie, which turned out to not really be true in the movie. So it's storytelling elements there that were setting up something big, but then just turned out to be nothing. For example, there's a relationship between two people, and it seems like it's going in good places. He bought her a business. He's helping her out. He's put her in another home. And then she cheats on the guy. So when he finds or has some kind of speculation that she's cheating on him, she tells him, and basically that's the end of her character. And when I was watching it, I was like, well, this is kind of whack. These characters have something. There's something that needs to be shown with these characters, but you're just rushing to these points. And I like David Chase as a director and a creator. I love the Sopranos. And I also saw that he's making something new in the Sopranos universe, which I'm also looking forward to. But when you have all these characters that are basically TV gold, and not necessarily movie gold, but TV gold, and you just kind of get rid of them the way that he did in this movie, I can't lie and say that I wasn't disappointed in the slightest, because I was. And with racism being such a great underlying tone of this film, it's like you don't have enough time to to tell this story. There's a moment in the movie where you have like this Black Panther slam poetry session, and it feels so out of left field because we're seeing these made men eating spaghetti in a restaurant, and then it just cuts to these people saying, wake up, brother. Oh man, brother, black people, we gotta rise, and it's a revolution. And it's just so jarring because it's like nothing led up to it. So I when I was watching, I couldn't help but laugh. And it's just, it missed. I will say that. This movie just missed as a movie, and it missed as a Sopranos tale, a story in the Sopranos universe. So like I said, it's above average, but it just missed. It could have been great. It could have been good, but there were just too many mistakes made along the way with this movie, mainly with the characters, and then there not being enough time to actually show us who these characters are, what their intentions are, who they are, what they've done. That's just not enough. And the parallels between the movie and the TV show, when I got out of the movie, I called my buddy and I was like, hey, did you notice that this person died in the car just like their grandson was going to? And during the conversation, we were just finding things out, and we were like, oh, well, that kind of makes sense, or that's a good little detail, or whatever. But like I said, it's just the time element. There's too much Sopranos to be told in 2 hours. That's the same amount of time as 2 episodes from The Sopranos. And The Sopranos has basically, well, it's 6 seasons, but season 6 is split up into 2 parts, so technically 7 in a way. It's a lot of episodes, basically, is what I'm trying to say. You can watch it in a few days, but you'd have to basically do nothing else but watch it if you try to do it in a week or whatnot. But David Chase just needs to go back to the drawing board before he does anything else. Go back to the drawing board and make sure that his next story is going to be within a limited series or just a regular TV show, and I'd be fine with it. Whether it's another prequel or even a sequel. Let me see what happens after whatever happens to Tony happens. They just, I don't want to say it's a disappointment, but they really just missed the mark. But speaking of missing the mark, Venom 2 was released this week. Or Venom Let There Be Carnage was released this week. Or last week, really. But Venom, the first Venom film, was an okay film for what it was. I've always liked Venom as a character from the Spider-Man animated cartoon. Him just being this big, bulky, black version of Spider-Man just kind of always called out to me. I'm like, well, this dude is just evil, and I like it. Because a lot of TV shows, they like to set up an evil character and then humanize them. So when the first movie was announced, I said, okay, well, this should be okay. I mean, it's Venom. What can go wrong? But they said that the movie would be PG-13, and that's where I got worried. That movie was a little boring. It took a little while to get to the fun parts, which is it's a negative for the movie. It just took way too long to get to the action, the stuff that makes Venom Venom. It took way too long for that. So with this movie, I was like, okay, we know what Venom is. We know who he is. We know who Eddie Brock is as a character. Let's get to the stuff. Let's get right into it. So, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the first movie, it ends off with Eddie Brock, who is a reporter or journalist. He is meeting with Cletus Cassidy, who is a serial killer, which in the comics, Cletus Cassidy becomes Carnage with the symbiote that is Carnage. So, with this movie, I was like, okay, I'm glad that Woody Harrelson, who plays Cletus Cassidy, got rid of his curly red Andy Afro wig. I was so glad he got rid of that. Not saying that this new haircut is way better, but it's better. But with this movie, I enjoyed it, first and foremost. It really feels like a late and early 2000s comic book movie. It feels like it could be Ghost Rider. It feels like a Blade movie. Like it just feels like one of those because the pacing is quick. And that's what needs to work for a movie like this to be good. It needs to be fast. It needs to get right into things. Granted, the comedy wasn't the greatest. There were a few jokes I laughed at, but it's kind of hard to laugh at something when you can barely understand what Venom is saying. Mainly when he talks, he has this like low grumble growl, but at the same time, it's kind of high pitched. So it almost sounds like this. It's like, I'm going to eat all the brains in the world if you give me the chance. Like it just sounds so goofy. And sometimes he'll say something so fast and it's like, wait a second, what did he say? So, for example, there are moments where you can hear it pretty clearly where Eddie will be saying something, but then he'll be talking to someone, someone else. And then in his mind, you'll hear, within him, you'll hear Venom say, let me eat him. Like that is funny. That makes sense. But when you give Venom these full paragraphs almost, and he's just speaking, it's kind of hard to make out what he's saying. I think it's just the sound design of his voice. I feel like that's what needs to be changed with whatever he's in next. But this movie, when it begins, it hits the ground running. It's just fast. It gives you the quick details about Cletus Cassidy's childhood, his childhood love, who is Shriek, played by Naomi Harris in this movie, which you may know her from Pirates of the Caribbean, and she's also in the new 007 movies, which I should have that review out to you next episode. Her character is a character that didn't need to be in this movie at all. It's like she's here, but she's really not here. And then she gets to this place, but she's really not there. And it's just, the movie could have been the same movie without her character, basically, is what I'm saying. It gives Carnage and Cletus this passion to get something done and to do something. It's basically Cletus's main focus is to be safe with his woman, but at the same time be evil with his woman. So that's his drive. That's his drive, but it really just doesn't work. When you have a character like Carnage and you have a character like Venom, this movie should be nothing but tension between the two. It shouldn't be on their relationships. By the way, Eddie Brock's relationship with his ex is also a part of this movie, which is boring to say the least, because she's moved on, but he doesn't want to believe it. So when she comes to tell him that she's engaged to this new guy, Dan, he's upset and whatnot. But it's just this time that they spend with these characters that don't really matter, or that shouldn't really matter. could be going to more action scenes and more action set pieces that are just going to be candy to our eyes. We get that, but in small amounts throughout the movie that just trickle through. I know it kind of sounds like I didn't really like this movie, but I did. Like it's kind of lighthearted in a way. I just sometimes you just feel like you have to root for this guy because he's so down on his luck a lot of the time. But that's another thing that's getting old with this character, because his character since the first movie even began has never really improved. He's simply always been the same character, which is okay, but you got to give someone like Eddie Brock a chance, or give us more of a reason to cheer for this dude. That's really what me as a Venom fan that's what I'm asking for. Like, just give me a reason to root for this guy. Let him get his wins, because when the inevitable happens, when he has to fight Spider-Man or go against Spider-Man, if there is a fight, he could lose. So give me a reason to root for this dude to win, which I know he's not. But speaking of Spider-Man, there's a post-credit scene that involves him, but I won't spoil it for you. I just wish that this movie really would have been a rated R movie. I wish that these characters felt more like characters instead of cartoon characters. It's okay to humanize these people because, you know, they're comic book villains basically, but they just, at the same time, you're trying to humanize these people that are also caricatures of what they are in the comics. So when you have Cletus Cassidy, who's literally a serial killer, not doing a whole lot of killing in this movie, it's kind of a disappointment. They should have done a better job of us or showing us how crazy this guy is and actually go into his psyche and show us, hey, this dude is insane. He killed his grandmother and his mother. Like, he's crazy. But they barely give you these details. It's like, oh, well, yeah, he did this and he did that. And then towards the end of the movie, where he tries to get out of a situation, he goes, oh, well, why does no one feel bad for me? I was mistreated and I was mishandled. And it's like, this movie's been on for an hour and a half. It's too late for that. They could have done so much better with the characters, but it's just a fun movie. And that's why I give it a 7 out of 10. I feel like Tom Hardy is Venom and Eddie Brock. He does a good job for what they are. Woody Harrelson is Cletus Cassidy. I feel like he did great. I wish that we could get more Cletus with Woody Harrelson playing the character, but with the way they set things up, I don't see that really happening. And like I said, the relationships, the whole Cletus Cassidy and Shriek situation just wasn't really appealing. The whole Eddie Brock and Ann and Dan throuple really didn't work for me. But it's fun. It's just fun. It's just good comic book film joy that you can get out of watching this movie. So 7 out of 10. I just hope that with the next few movies or the next movie that he's in, that his character changes. He learns from his experiences and learns from being with his symbiote and what power he has. I hope that he learns things of the sort. I hope that he's able to get over this relationship with Ann and Dan. I just want to see more Venom. I think that's really what I want to say here. There's a point in the movie where Venom and Eddie split up, and Venom goes to this rave/nightclub and puts on glow sticks and gives this speech basically about love. And it's like, okay, this is fine, but can you fight Carnage or fight somebody? Or can there be something right now? That's just a few things I was just thinking about when I was watching it. Like, why am I watching this when you could be out, you know, doing things that Venom does, which is eat people, eat brains. Go do that. It's okay to see you wear glow sticks and have a microphone and do a mic drop. That's fine, but come on, man. Like, they can give us a little bit more. They're just choosing not to for whatever reason. But the movie's still a 7 out of 10, which is more than what I can say about a few comic book movies that have come out over the past few years, such as Black Widow and Wonder Woman 84. But that's neither here nor there. Speaking of bad movies, I want to talk about Dear Evan Hansen real quick. Dear Evan Hansen is a movie that's not really that enjoyable. I didn't really go into this movie expecting much. I never watched the play or anything, so I just kind of went into it blind. And when I found out that the movie was basically about this guy telling a lie and then telling an even bigger lie, and then he just kept digging his hole deeper and deeper, I kind of got fed up with it a little bit. I feel like it just didn't do what needed to be done to tell this story. Like, it's just he lies, and then he lies again, and he just keeps these lies up for however long the movie is. But in movie time, it's for maybe, I think it's months even. And he has all the chances in the world to say, hey, I'm doing this. I'm lying to you all. I am so sorry. Can you all forgive me? But he just lets his whole lie just ride on out to the point where someone says something about him online, on Instagram, of course, because where else would it happen? And the world sees it, or the people in the movie see it, and they just, see how much of a fraud he is. And he apologizes. And it wasn't fun to watch. The music, to me, wasn't really that enjoyable. I kid you not, whenever they did start singing, I would just pull out my phone and just start texting or looking at the Cowboy score, just because the movie was just that much of a drag to me. Maybe different for someone else, or someone that's seen the play, but to me, it just wasn't great or good even. I want to say that this movie is the easiest 3 out of 10 that I've ever given anything. And that's tough to say because I've seen a lot of 3 out of 10, but when I was watching this movie, and there was one moment, I will say, I will spoil this. There's a character who is no longer breathing in this film, but the movie has time to have this character show up and sing a song or do some dances to a musical number, and he's singing, and he is singing an email that someone else is writing, basically. But he's singing, and everybody's happy. The dude is smiling, which he never smiled when he was alive. He gets on the table, and I think he's doing like a little dance or whatever. Then out of nowhere, he just hits the dab. And I think it was that point where I just checked out. I said, there's no way that this movie is trying to be a little bit serious and then have this dude singing, dancing, and hitting the dab. I didn't want to believe my eyes, but he literally just hit the dab while he was dead. And yeah, I really do think it was that point where I was just like, yeah, okay, I don't really care what happens after this. I'm sorry, man, but I just have that image in my head sometimes where he just hits the dab. But anyway, like I said, the easiest 3 out of 10 I could give a movie. If you like musicals, or if you like music and not so great movies, then check out this one. If you want to laugh at, I don't know how old Ben Platt is, but however old he is, he doesn't look 17. He doesn't look 18. He doesn't look like a high schooler in general. But to see this man play a high schooler is kind of funny at times. There's a scene where he's talking to someone in the hallway and he just takes off running because he has social anxiety. And I shouldn't have chuckled. I shouldn't have. But I kind of did. Because it just looks so funny for him. And then seeing his character just start crying. And then it's just, he is a grown man. Which I did see that he's not going to be playing the character anymore, which, is okay. But that's not to say that his acting in this was funny to me. It was just funny to me. And like I said, when they would sing, they would be having a normal conversation at a dinner table for one scene. And then out of nowhere, he just begins to sing a song. And I'm like, all right, here we go. And I legit just put out my phone and went on Twitter and looked at the Cowboy score and until the song was over, basically, because I didn't need to see it. I just needed to hear it. And what I was hearing wasn't great. So once again, Dear Evan Hansen is a 3 out of 10. I don't really recommend it if you don't. Well, if you want to see a good movie, don't see this one, basically. But if you do want to see a good movie, I do recommend the movie called Copshop. Now, Copshop is a film that stars Frank Grillo, Gerard Butler, and Alexis Louder. And it's a movie that I did not expect to do much for me. Like I told you time and time again, I do love me a good action dumb action movie where I can just sit down and turn my brain off for. And this is one of those, but it's also smart. So I loved it. And Frank Grillo plays this guy who's on the run from this assassin, the assassin who is Gerard Butler. And there's this shootout that happens. His character's running. He wants to be safe instead of running. So what he actually does is he punches his cop, who is played by Alexis Louder. Punches her on purpose and basically says, yeah, put the cuffs on me and put me in the back of the cruiser. I'm ready to go to jail. So she takes him to jail. He goes into the cell and he's not really saying too much to them. He's just kind of waiting on, I guess, the night to be over with so he can leave. And then, boom, out of nowhere, his assassin rams into the back of a couple of police cars, which I'm guessing he heard that Frank Grillo's character was in prison, was in jail. He hits the back of a police car, he's acting drunk, and they tackle him, and they send him to the same jail that Frank Grillo's character is at. Now, here you have this whole cat and mouse situation with Frank Grillo being the cat and Gerard Butler being the cat and Frank Grillo's character being the mouse. So then once he sees that his assassin is in the jail cell across from him, he starts to freak out a little bit. He's like, oh no, I need to get out of here. I need to be somewhere else. He's going to kill me. You have to do this for me. Get me out of here or put him somewhere else. This isn't going to work. And then being the police and seeing both of these guys as criminals, they're like, well, whatever, screw it. Since he's acting drunk, he's in this cell. And since you're sober, you're in this cell. So he can't do anything to you. There's another assassin that comes. And this is where things get kind of muddy. This assassin, his target is also Frank Grillo's character. So he comes and he's basically doing his job. He's coming in, he's killing cops, and he finds his way back to where the cells are. And he has this conversation with Gerard Butler's character. He's like, oh, well, my name is Tony now. I don't go by Anthony anymore. And he gets kind of ticked off because Gerard Butler keeps calling him Anthony. So he's a comic relief character, but he's also a main antagonist, which is great. Because he's you can tell this dude he's a straight up psychopath, but he's smart, and apparently he knows what he needs to do to get to where he needs to be. So he got close to Frank Grillo's character, who was his target. So that says a lot. So most of this movie, it takes place within the prison or the police station. I'm sorry, it takes place mainly in the police station, so it's confined. And then seeing these characters in these jail cells makes it even more confined. But apparently they get out. And then that's when the fun really begins, because you have these characters with these sets of skills, in the words of Liam Neeson, and they are basically doing what they need to do to survive the night and get out and be who they need to be. Long story short, people die. There are bodies that get dropped. And I think that's why I like this movie the most, because it's not afraid to show us that these people are getting offed. I mean, it doesn't show us every gruesome detail, but it does a good job saying, hey, this dude is not coming back in this movie. So now that he's out, these characters that are alive have to figure out their own drama. There's a few twists that happen at the end of the movie that are great. Copshop in general is a great movie, and for that I give it an 8 out of 10. because of how great it is. I went in there just wanting to watch something dumb, something with action, something to get the adrenaline pumping a little bit. But what I got was a great movie, a great action movie. It wasn't really dumb. So there's a scene in this movie where this guy is he's on the computer looking up, people that have been locked up, and people that could be or have some kind of relation to the guy that they just locked up, and he finds them, and the assassin walks in and he's all, hey, he has these balloons and whatever, and he's just this corny guy. So he talks to the cop that's on the computer, and he shoots the cop. The cop dies super slowly, and the guy's talking to him, and then the guy looks at the computer and goes, hey, that looks like me. And he's just like, it's just funny because he's talking to himself, but it's for our entertainment. So it's a great film. I did see that the director wanted another cut of the film to be released, but I really want to see what his mind for this movie was going to be, because this is the same guy that directed the movie called The Grey with Liam Neeson. The one where he fights the wolves, where he was supposed to fight the wolves, but we don't really see any wolf fighting in that movie, which was a disappointment to me, but great movie overall. Copshop is a must-see if you like action films, if you like films that take place in prisons or jails or police stations or just action movies in general. Like, you're going to have a good time with this movie, even if you just like Gerard Butler. I like Gerard Butler. He's not my favorite or anything. I loved him ever since I saw him in 300, but if you even just like the dude, you'll have a good time with this movie. If you like Frank Grillo, you'll like this movie. Yeah, good movie overall. Great movie overall. Real quick, I want to talk about Midnight Mass, which is the new show by Mike Flanagan, who is the creator for The Haunting of Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor. He has his third miniseries called Midnight Mass. Now, with this show, I'm just gonna call it a show. I'm not gonna say miniseries this whole time. But with this show, I didn't really have any expectations. I was expecting something close to Hill House and Bly Manor, because in a way they're both similar. Of course they have similar casts, which is always a great thing in Mike Flanagan projects. The fact that he uses similar casting to play different characters is cool to me. But with this show, I didn't really know what I was walking into. I didn't watch any trailers or anything, or I just went in basically totally blind and watched all 7 episodes over the span of like a night and a morning. It's a good show. I will say that. It's about this man who has done something terrible by accident. And he's from this island, or this remote island kind of, and they have their own community and they're super duper religious and they go to church every day and things of the sort. So we assume that he was brought up with a religious background because of his parents and the way that they treat religion. So something happens to him. He goes to prison for 4 years, I believe it was. And a lot can happen in 4 years, but I think a lot more can happen in 4 years in prison. So when he gets out, he's a completely changed man. He even says that he's not the man that he used to be. So this character, being a man that maybe was a man of faith before this event happened to him, seeing him go from, not really seeing it, but seeing the aftermath of him being in prison for 4 years, him changing as a man. It's an interesting tale that is telling, because you have this island that's full of religious people, and you have this man that may have been full of religion, but then lost his faith because of his time in prison and what happened to him in prison and the event that led him to go to prison. So you see him and his parents are saying, oh, well, we have to go to church and you're coming with us. And him saying, well, I don't really want to go. I'm not really a fan of religion. I don't rock with religion like that, y'all. But he goes anyway. And they tell him, hey, you can come, just don't come up for communion and whatnot. So his character is just a little bit off. He doesn't feel the way that he used to feel about things, which is tragic for him, but what can you do at the end of the day in that situation? But for all the other characters in the island or on the island, they are, like I said, religious people. There's a sheriff who is Muslim, so he's not really involved with Christianity like the way that they are. So he and his son are trying to keep their Muslim faith, while his son is saying, hey, I want to go to church with them because they're cool, and I want to hang out with them because they're cool, and I want to learn Christianity like them because they're cool. And it's just a family dilemmas with that family, the sheriff and his son, the main character Riley and his family, and it's just interesting. It's an interesting show. It tells a tale it's not really scary. I don't want to say it's scary, but it's just a lot of fun. So if you like to have fun watching a little bit of horror, then I definitely recommend it. It's 7 episodes, so it's just kind of in and out. It can be in and out if you want it to be. Pause. But yeah, it's just a lot of fun. It's short and sweet. And it's just watching them think that religion can fix his character and fix him into being this, the guy that he used to be and this super religious person. It's interesting because the lengths that they go to show him like, hey, things aren't right in your life because you don't believe and you need to start back believing and you should do this. And then when the horror elements actually get into the show and there's a threat, it's like, okay, so what are these people going to do now? Because it's obvious that these people are blind followers. They're following someone that they barely know because of a quote unquote recommendation. And it's just a good show. I don't want to spoil anything. I do want to say it's better than The Haunting on Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor, but it's less of a psychological horror compared to the two. This one's more of an actual horror. There's an actual presence in the show, so I think that's what makes it a little bit better than the other show. So if I had to give this miniseries a rating, I want to say it's an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. What's funny is that when I was watching it, I got to episode 5, which leaves off on this huge cliffhanger, and I had to leave and go play Dungeons and Dragons. And the whole session that we played, which was maybe about 3.5 hours, I tried to be involved, but I could not stop thinking about the show that I just watched. So at the end, they're like, "Oh, what's going on, Dom? You didn't really say much tonight." I'm like, "Well, I kind of want to get back to my show," and I apologize, y'all. So there's that. It's something that's different. It's fun to watch. Definitely check it out. So I believe that's it for reviews I want to do this week. I think I want to save some other things for later. I did see No Time to Die, which is the new 007 movie. I did see that today, so be expecting that review sooner than later. That should be a fun one. But I do want to start a new segment, and it's going to be kind of a This Week in Film type of deal, but I'm going to be going through different years in history during this week to see what was basically running through the box office records and just in theaters in general. If I like the movie, I'll discuss it and say when it came or when it was released. So the first one I want to start off with is the Halloween movie from 2018, the new Halloween movies, and with the start of the new Halloween movies anyway. I really enjoyed that movie more than I thought I would. I went into it not expecting too much, but what I got was a traditional Michael Myers movie. It's Michael Myers, of course, who is the best slasher, hands down, no debating. It's him. And it's him in his old creepy mood, and he's mad and he's angry and he has a reason to kill these people. And it's just not happening for no reason. It's all for a reason. He wants to kill his sister. And then seeing Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie Strode come back, it gave me goosebumps in a way. I really enjoyed it. The scene where he's going through the house and he goes into the house and there's a kid being babysat by this his babysitter, who is a white girl, and the kid is a black boy, a little black boy. And there's a scene where she's like, "I'm gonna go upstairs and see what that sound was." And he's like, "No, I'm not. I'm going back down." And it's just moments like that in that movie that made it so good to me, because it knows what it is at this point. It's not trying to be scary, but it's a horror film. None of these movies now are trying, or a lot of these movies are trying to be scary. But this was a great way to kick off this new trilogy that they're making. The new one, Halloween Kills, comes out on the 15th of October, I believe. So I will be checking that out. Expect that review soon also. Really looking forward to that one. I'm really looking forward to it. It's one of those movies that I won't say is a guilty pleasure, because I really enjoy them and I'm not afraid to tell people that I enjoy them. But that's just a movie that I can just put on and just watch and not have any complaints about anything. I loved it. And yeah, so what's funny about that is, at the same time, which, like I said, 2018, so this was 3 years ago, during the same time, Venom was in theaters as Halloween was running. And then, fast forward to now, we have Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and Halloween Kills that are going to be in the theaters at the same time. So I think that's kind of funny how COVID, delayed both of these movies back to be released around the same time again, just 3 years later. So that's a cool little detail if you didn't already know that. I didn't know that until today either, so kudos to me for looking that up. And this week, 10 years ago, Paranormal Activity 3 was in theaters. Now, Paranormal Activity is a franchise that I have a love-hate relationship with. I like the first 3 movies, Paranormal Activity 1, 2, and 3. The 4th movie was a little bit of a snooze fest to me. It was kind of boring. I didn't really care about the story at that point. The story they were trying to tell, when they basically do away with the characters that we know and love and then just kind of sprinkle them in and then have a big reveal at the end of it, didn't really do it for me. The 5th one didn't really do it for me either. The 6th one, I don't even think I saw the 6th one, to be honest. But I do know they have this new one coming out on Paramount Plus, which I may or may not see, depending on how I feel. But the 3rd one is the one that got me like, yeah, these movies, they're onto something good at the time, which was 2011. I thought to myself they were onto something good, because the 3rd movie is a prequel to the first 2 movies. And it's about the two sisters when they were children, and how this whole demon ghost entity got brought into their lives. And it's basically all because of their grandmother, who was a witch. And I will never forget when I went to go and see it. I was in college at the time, but I went to go and see it. And there's a scene where the dad is finally figuring things out. Like, yeah, this woman is cuckoo. She's out of marbles. She's out of her mind. She's lost her marbles. And he's running through the house, and he gets to the there's like a walkway like between their garage and their house, or her house. And he looks through like the window, and he sees like all these old women, and I kid you not, they turn around like this. They're like, and then the camera is just like sitting there looking at him, and I'm like, yeah, that was kind of creepy. Like, give me more of that. Show me these old creepy white women that are witches doing creepy things and entering demons and ghosts into their family for their own gain somehow. I'm not sure if it's going to make them any money or anything, but yeah, give me more creepy old ladies. Give me more of that. And less technology, less cell phones and stuff. But I've always been a fan of found footage horror films. I talked to you all about the Blair Witch Project and how that kind of put the horror bug in me, watching that at a young age. But yeah, I really enjoyed the 3rd movie. So yeah, that was this week in film. But for movies that I'm looking forward to seeing, I've already said I'm looking forward to Halloween Kills. That's a must. The Last Duel is coming out next week as well on the 15th, and that stars Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and Adam Driver. So I'm looking forward to that. It's been a while since I've seen them act together in anything. I'm talking about Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, but I'm looking forward to this. It seems like it could be interesting. Hopefully it's not boring when you have these big names such as Adam Driver and Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. So these are usually names that if you hear them, you think of something good. When you hear Adam Driver, you think about Star Wars, which did get sour towards the end, or was sour in general, depending on who you talk to about. But I think about Black Klansman. He was great in that. Matt Damon, I think about him and whatever Matt Damon is in, it's usually just a good movie. Except for Downsizing. I didn't really like Downsizing much. And then Ben Affleck, I mean, he was Batman. I liked him as Batman, but I guess that story is done and over with. But really looking forward to that. The following week on the 22nd is when Dune comes out. Now, Dune is a movie that I hear a lot about. I haven't read the book. I don't plan on doing that before this movie comes out in a couple of weeks. But if the movie's going to be as good as these fans are clamoring it to be, Lynn, if you're listening, I'm talking to you. I just hope that y'all are right. Because the trailers look great. I might even see it in IMAX. The trailers look great. It's just, it seems like there's a lot of hype, and it'll be a little bit disappointing if this movie is going to come out on HBO Max too. It's going to be a little bit disappointing if this movie doesn't do well in theaters because of the whole HBO Max ordeal. Because we see how bad that hurts movies. We seen how bad it hurt the Suicide Squad, and even the Many Saints of Newark, which I don't think got a lot of traction in the box office in general at all either, because of the whole HBO Max same day deal that they have going on with Warner Brothers. But I'm looking forward to it nonetheless. And also the Last Night in Soho with Anya Taylor-Joy is coming out. That's looking to be an interesting tale about a woman who doesn't really know who she is, or I don't really know. I'm trying to stay away from any more trailers or anything telling the film. So looking forward to that. And that comes out on the 29th of October. So that should be another fun watch. And then for next month, November, it's looking to be a stacked month. So I'm really looking forward to everything that's coming out in November, such as we have The Eternals, which I believe is November 5th, which is soon, very soon. I'm really looking forward to that. We have House of Gucci with Adam Driver, Lady Gaga, and Jared Leto. We have Encanto, the new Disney film, and y'all know I have a love-hate relationship with Disney also, but I'm going to watch it. And also Ghostbusters Afterlife will be released as well. And Red Notice, the movie with Ryan Reynolds, Gal Gadot, and The Rock. That'll be on Netflix. Clifford the Big Red Dog is coming. It's on the way. I think it got delayed to next month, so maybe Clifford the Red Dog will be good. Maybe if we get a Clifford movie, maybe someday we'll get an Arthur movie, and I'll be there for Arthur. As long as we don't get a Caillou movie. I hate Caillou. Well, I don't want to say I hate a little kid, but I can't stand Caillou, y'all. We'll have a discussion about Caillou another day. But as long as we don't have another Caillou movie, I'll be okay. And, and Finch, the movie with Tom Hanks where he has a robot and a dog. And I believe the movie is about him training the robot to love the dog after he dies. So that should be interesting. It looks like it might be one of those movies that might jerk a tear from you. So, I mean, I really watch anything that Tom Hanks is in. So I'm looking forward to that nonetheless. So I believe that does it. I don't really have much to talk about this episode. I do want to save some things for later. I did watch Squid Game. I don't believe I've talked about Candyman yet, so I do want to do a Candyman review sometime. And plus, we have all these movies coming out in a couple of weeks, so I'll be definitely reviewing these soon. So be looking forward to that. Once again, I do want to apologize for my inconsistency with putting episodes out. I am trying to get better, but like I said before, life just keeps getting in the way. So with that being said, I hope that each and every last one of you are staying safe. Outside is still open. People are, not wearing masks, of course. I don't want to say anything about vaccinations at all. So I just want to tell y'all to be safe. I did lose someone to COVID, a friend of mine from college. She did pass, so I do want to say rest in peace to Jacqueline Lowry, and I hope that her family is doing well. So, real quick, thank you for listening. Thank you for showing up. I know this might be a little bit of a shorter one, but here we are. I got something out. That's what's important, is that I got you listening to me. So, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing the podcast. Thank you for subscribing and checking me out and giving me feedback once again. Be nice to people. Be nicer to people, I should say. That passive aggressive niceness is a little bit annoying. Don't be afraid to speak to people. Just be good people overall. That's my whole motto. Just be good people. Take care of yourselves. Keep listening to the Dom Trap. Keep rocking in the free world. And I will see you guys soon. And once again, this has been your host, your creator, your editor, your director, your co-producer, your best boy, your all the above, your first, your last, and your everything. I can't believe I forgot to say this at the beginning of the episode, but I'm sorry, you got it now. So yeah, once again, your first, your last, and your everything. I go by the name of Dominique, and I will see you all next time. Love you, I guess. Peace.